What if I told you that by 2025, your grocery bill could be 30% higher, your rent could skyrocket, and your energy costs could drain your paycheck faster than ever before? Sounds extreme, right? But the truth is, this isn't some distant possibility. It's already happening. Across the UK, families are feeling the pressure. Food prices are climbing every month, energy bills refuse to drop, and rent prices are reaching record highs. And here's the worst part. It's about to get even worse. Experts warn that the next 12 months could bring one of the biggest cost of living surges in recent history. Interest rates are rising, government support is shrinking, and supply chains are still a mess. Everything's getting more expensive, but wages aren't keeping up. So what exactly is causing this crisis? More importantly, how can you protect yourself before it's too late? In this video, we're breaking down the 10 biggest reasons why the UK's cost of living will skyrocket in 2025. And most importantly, what you can do right now to stay ahead. This isn't just speculation. These are real-world trends backed by data, and they could impact your life sooner than you think. Stay with me until the end, because some of these reasons will shock you, and knowing them now could save you thousands of pounds in the future. Number 1. Energy prices set to surge. Energy costs in the UK have been volatile over the past few years, but 2025 could bring another sharp increase. Households and businesses alike are likely to feel the pressure, as gas and electricity bills climb due to several key factors. One of the biggest drivers is the UK's reliance on imported energy. Despite efforts to increase renewable energy production, the country still depends heavily on natural gas, much of which comes from overseas. Any disruptions in global supply chains, whether due to geopolitical tensions, extreme weather, or rising demand, could lead to significant price hikes. The lingering effects of the Russia-Ukraine war are also a major concern. While energy prices stabilized slightly in 2024, the long-term impact of supply shortages and shifting global alliances is still unfolding. If European nations continue competing for limited gas supplies, costs will inevitably rise. Another factor is government policy. The UK's push for net zero emissions means heavier taxation on fossil fuels, which will be passed down to consumers. Investments in renewable infrastructure, while necessary for sustainability, require funding, often leading to higher energy bills in the short term. For the average household, this means budgeting for increased heating and electricity costs. Businesses, especially those in energy-intensive industries, may also pass their rising costs onto consumers, leading to inflation across various sectors. To mitigate the impact, households should consider locking in a fixed-rate energy deal before prices climb further. Investing in energy-efficient appliances, improving home insulation, and exploring alternative heating options can also help reduce long-term costs. With energy being a fundamental necessity, price hikes will have a domino effect on overall living expenses, making this one of the most pressing concerns for UK households in 2025. Number 2. Rising interest rates. Interest rates in the UK have been climbing steadily, and 2025 is set to bring even more financial pressure for homeowners and renters alike. The Bank of England has been raising rates to combat inflation, but this strategy has made borrowing significantly more expensive. For homeowners with variable rate mortgages or those whose fixed rate deals are expiring, the impact will be severe. Monthly mortgage payments could increase by hundreds of pounds, forcing many to cut back on spending or, in extreme cases, sell their homes. First-time buyers will also struggle, as higher interest rates mean larger monthly repayments, reducing affordability. The rental market is not immune to this crisis. Landlords with buy-to-let mortgages are also facing higher costs, which they are likely to pass on to tenants. As a result, rent prices, already at record highs, will continue to climb. This could push more people into shared housing or force them to relocate to less expensive areas. Another challenge is the rising cost of consumer debt. Higher interest rates affect credit cards, personal loans, and car financing, making it more expensive for people to manage existing debt or take on new loans. This will put additional strain on household budgets, particularly for those already struggling with rising living costs. To prepare for these changes, homeowners should explore refinancing options before rates rise further. Renters may consider negotiating longer-term leases to lock in current prices. Anyone with debt should prioritize paying off high-interest loans as soon as possible. With borrowing costs expected to remain high well into 2025, financial planning is more critical than ever. Those who take proactive steps now will be in a much stronger position to weather the coming economic storm. Number 3. Food prices climbing. Food prices in the UK have been rising steadily, but 2025 could bring even sharper increases. A combination of global supply chain disruptions, extreme weather, and trade barriers is driving up the cost of everyday essentials. For millions of households, this means higher grocery bills and fewer affordable options. One major factor is the UK's reliance on imported food. Around 46% of the country's food supply comes from abroad, meaning fluctuations in global markets have a direct impact on prices. Any disruptions, whether from poor harvests, increased shipping costs, or currency fluctuations, can make staple foods significantly more expensive. Extreme weather events are also playing a role. Droughts, floods, and unpredictable growing conditions have affected crop yields worldwide. When supply drops, prices rise. The UK is particularly vulnerable because it imports large amounts of fresh produce from countries like Spain and the Netherlands, where climate-related issues are already impacting production. Brexit-related trade policies continue to add pressure. Increased paperwork, import taxes, and border delays have made it more expensive for businesses to bring food into the country. These costs are passed down to consumers, making imported goods even less affordable. For the average household, this means adjusting to higher prices on essentials like bread, dairy, and fresh vegetables. Some may need to switch to budget supermarkets or reduce their spending on non-essential food items. To prepare, households can consider bulk buying non-perishable items before prices increase further, growing vegetables at home, taking advantage of local food cooperatives, and reducing food waste can also help offset rising costs. With food being an unavoidable expense, rising prices will put additional strain on household budgets, making 2025 a difficult year for many families across the UK. Number 4. UK's weak pound and import costs. The value of the British pound has a direct impact on the cost of living, and 2025 could see further depreciation. A weaker currency makes imported goods more expensive, affecting everything from groceries to electronics. With the UK relying heavily on imports, households will likely face higher prices across multiple sectors. One of the main reasons for the pound's instability is ongoing economic uncertainty. Factors such as inflation, government debt, and fluctuating interest rates influence currency strength. If investor confidence in the UK economy weakens, the pound could decline further, making imported goods even more costly. Energy prices also play a role. Since the UK imports a significant portion of its energy, a weaker pound means higher costs for fuel and electricity. These increased expenses can then affect transportation, manufacturing, and retail prices, leading to widespread inflation. Trade disruptions continue to be a challenge. Brexit-related trade policies have already led to higher import costs due to additional tariffs and paperwork. If further regulatory changes or global economic instability occur, import prices could rise even more, impacting businesses and consumers alike. For households, this means paying more for everyday goods, including food, clothing, and household appliances. It also affects travel, as a weaker pound reduces the purchasing power of UK citizens abroad, making holidays and international purchases more expensive. To mitigate the impact, consumers can plan ahead by purchasing essential imported items before further price increases. Supporting local products and services can also help reduce reliance on costly imports. With the UK economy facing ongoing uncertainty, the pound's value will remain a key factor influencing the cost of living. Unless stability improves, rising import costs will continue to put financial pressure on households well into 2025. Number 5. Shrinking government support. Government support has been a crucial lifeline for many households in recent years. But in 2025, financial assistance is expected to shrink. As the government faces budget pressures and debt concerns, fewer cost of living relief measures will be available, leaving many vulnerable to rising expenses. One of the biggest changes will be the reduction of direct financial aid. The energy price guarantee and cost of living payments introduced during previous crises are unlikely to continue at the same level. Without these subsidies, millions of households will face higher energy and utility bills with no additional support. Universal credit and other benefits may also see changes. While inflation has pushed up the cost of everyday essentials, benefits have not always increased at the same rate. Stricter eligibility requirements and delays in payments could make it harder for those in need to access financial help. Local councils are also under financial strain. Funding cuts could mean fewer subsidies for low-income households, reduced support for food banks, and limited assistance with housing costs. As council tax rates continue to rise, many households may find themselves paying more while receiving fewer services in return. Public services, such as free school meals, travel discounts, and housing support may also be affected. If funding decreases, more families could struggle to cover basic needs, leading to increased reliance on charities and community aid programs. To prepare for these changes, households should explore all available support options, including lesser-known grants and assistance programs. Budgeting carefully and planning for potential reductions in aid will be essential. With government support shrinking, many will need to find new ways to manage rising living costs, making financial planning more important than ever in 2025. Number 6. Supply chain disruptions. Supply chain disruptions have been a major driver of inflation in recent years, and 2025 is unlikely to bring relief. Delays, shortages, and increased transportation costs will continue to push prices higher, making everyday goods more expensive for UK households. One key issue is labour shortages. The UK logistics sector is still struggling with a lack of workers, from truck drivers to warehouse staff. Without enough manpower, the movement of goods slows down, leading to delays and higher costs for businesses. These costs are then passed on to consumers. Global shipping challenges are also contributing to rising prices. Ongoing congestion at major ports, higher fuel costs, and geopolitical tensions are increasing the price of transporting goods. With the UK relying on imports for everything, from electronics to fresh produce, this means consumers will face higher costs on a wide range of products. Manufacturing delays are another problem. Many industries are still experiencing backlogs from supply chain disruptions that began during the pandemic. Shortages of key materials such as semiconductors and construction supplies are keeping prices elevated, particularly for cars, home appliances, and building materials. Brexit-related trade policies add another layer of complexity. Increased border checks, tariffs, and regulatory hurdles have made importing goods into the UK more expensive and time-consuming. This affects not only retailers, but also small businesses that rely on global suppliers. To minimise the impact, consumers can plan major purchases ahead of time and look for locally produced alternatives. Businesses should consider diversifying their supply chains to reduce dependence on international markets. With ongoing supply chain instability, prices are unlikely to drop anytime soon. Instead, UK households should prepare for continued cost increases on essential goods well into 2025. Number 7. Wages aren't keeping up with inflation. One of the biggest financial challenges facing UK households in 2025 is the widening gap between wages and inflation. While the cost of living continues to rise, salaries are not increasing at the same pace, leaving many struggling to afford basic necessities. Despite modest wage growth in some sectors, inflation has eroded the real value of earnings. Even if workers receive pay raises, the impact is often minimal when compared to soaring costs for housing, food, energy, and transportation. This means that even those earning more in 2025 could feel financially worse off than they did in previous years. Many businesses are also cutting back on pay increases due to economic uncertainty. Higher operating costs, supply chain disruptions, and reduced consumer spending have forced companies to limit wage growth. Some industries are even experiencing hiring freezes or job cuts, making it harder for workers to negotiate better pay. Public sector employees, including teachers, healthcare workers, and civil servants, may be particularly affected. Government budget constraints could lead to smaller pay rises, increasing financial pressure on those who rely on steady salary growth to keep up with inflation. For workers, this means finding ways to increase income outside of traditional employment. Upskilling, freelancing, or starting side businesses could provide additional financial security. Negotiating pay raises or seeking job opportunities in higher-paying industries may also be necessary. To cope with stagnant wages, households should focus on budgeting, reducing unnecessary expenses, and prioritizing savings. Finding ways to increase earnings will be crucial, as the gap between income and living costs continues to widen. Without significant wage growth, many UK residents will find it increasingly difficult to maintain their current standard of living, making financial planning essential for 2025 and beyond. Number 8. Public transport and fuel prices. Getting around in the UK is becoming increasingly expensive, and 2025 is set to bring even higher costs for both public transport users and motorists. Rising fuel prices, fare increases, and new policies aimed at reducing emissions will all contribute to higher transportation expenses. Rail and bus fares have been rising steadily, and further increases are expected. Many transport companies are struggling with higher operating costs due to fuel prices, staff wages, and maintenance expenses. To cover these costs, ticket prices are likely to go up, making commuting and travel more expensive for millions of people. Congestion charges and low emission zones in major cities are also adding to costs. London's ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, expansion, and similar schemes in other cities mean that older vehicles face daily charges. For those who rely on cars for work or daily travel, these additional costs can quickly add up. Fuel prices remain unpredictable, but global oil market fluctuations and taxation policies could push prices higher. While the UK government has previously offered fuel duty freezes, there is no guarantee that these will continue. If fuel costs rise, not only will motorists feel the impact, but transport companies will also pass the costs on to passengers. To reduce expenses, commuters may need to look at alternative transport options. Investing in season tickets, switching to cycling, or using car-sharing services could help offset rising costs. For those driving older vehicles, upgrading to low-emission models might be a long-term solution. With transportation being a necessary expense, these rising costs will put additional pressure on household budgets. Planning ahead and exploring more cost-effective travel options will be essential for managing expenses in 2025. Number 9. Rent prices hitting record highs. Rent prices across the UK have been rising rapidly, and 2025 is set to bring even more increases. A combination of high demand, limited housing supply, and rising mortgage rates is making renting less affordable for millions of people. One of the biggest factors driving rent increases is the growing cost of home ownership. Many landlords have buy-to-let mortgages, and as interest rates rise, they are passing these costs on to tenants. This means renters will face higher monthly payments even if their salaries remain the same. The UK is also experiencing a housing shortage. Fewer new homes are being built due to high construction costs, planning restrictions, and economic uncertainty. With demand far outpacing supply, landlords can continue raising rents, knowing that tenants have limited options. In major cities like London, Manchester, and Birmingham, competition for rental properties is especially intense, driving prices even higher. For young professionals and low-income families, these increases are making it harder to secure affordable housing. More people are being forced into house shares, moving further away from city centres, or even staying with family longer to save money. Social housing availability is also shrinking. With long waiting lists and fewer new developments, those relying on government housing support may struggle to find suitable accommodation. This could lead to more people facing housing insecurity or even homelessness. To navigate rising rents, tenants may need to consider negotiating longer-term lease agreements to lock in current rates. Exploring alternative locations, co-living arrangements, or even home ownership schemes could also be potential solutions. With rental costs rising faster than wages, many people will find it increasingly difficult to afford housing in 2025. Planning ahead and exploring all available options will be essential for securing stable accommodation. Number 10. Taxes and council bills going up. Tax increases and rising council bills will add further financial pressure on UK households in 2025. As local governments and the national government seek to cover budget shortfalls, higher taxation and service charges are becoming unavoidable. One of the biggest concerns is rising council tax. Local authorities are struggling with increased costs for public services, including social care, waste collection, and road maintenance. Many councils have already raised their tax rates, and further increases are expected. Households could see their annual council tax bills rise by hundreds of pounds, adding another strain to already tight budgets. Water bills and waste collection charges are also set to rise. Many water companies are passing infrastructure and maintenance costs onto consumers, while some local councils are introducing extra fees for waste disposal and recycling services. These rising costs will impact both homeowners and renters alike. National taxes may also increase. The government faces mounting pressure to manage public debt, fund the NHS, and maintain public services. While direct income tax hikes may not happen immediately, adjustments to tax thresholds could result in more people paying higher tax rates. This means that even without official tax increases, many workers could find themselves paying more in deductions. For businesses, higher taxation could lead to increased costs for goods and services. If companies are taxed more, they often pass these costs on to consumers, leading to further price hikes in everyday expenses. To prepare, households should check if they qualify for council tax reductions, look for energy and water-saving strategies, and factor in rising taxes when budgeting for the year. With both local and national tax burdens increasing, UK residents will need to manage their finances carefully to keep up with rising living costs in 2025. The UK's cost of living crisis isn't just a distant threat, it's happening right now. Energy bills are rising, rent is becoming unaffordable, and food prices are climbing higher every month. With interest rates surging, government support shrinking, and wages failing to keep up, 2025 could be one of the toughest financial years yet, but knowing what's coming gives you an advantage. By preparing now, whether that means securing a fixed-rate mortgage, cutting unnecessary expenses, or exploring new income streams, you can take control of your finances before it's too late. The worst thing you can do is ignore these warning signs. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these rising costs do you feel the most? Are you already seeing price hikes in your bills, rent, or groceries? Drop a comment below and let's help each other prepare. We put hours of research into making these videos so you can stay ahead of the curve. All we ask is one simple click. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. More insights are coming, and trust me, you don't want to be the last to know.